Welcome near and far. It is fall, but welcome near and far. That's what I was saying. To the astrology masterclass that is going to be about the planet Mars. Mars is, in my personal opinion, the most misunderstood planet in astrology. I think that we kind of brush Mars off a lot of the times in terms of how we think about important aspects to astrology. And this planet, I want to give a better understanding for not only what Mars means, but how you can also activate, utilize, and tap into your Mars as well. So, this whole live stream is basically going to be centered around how to find your power, how Mars is also associated with doing the nasty, and most importantly, how can you start to utilize your own energy based off of your chart? Understand the energy of the collective based off what's happening with Mars there and more. I'm just doing the thing real quick where I'm checking if I'm live. If y'all here, make sure that you tap in, drop down the like. I see a couple likes already. So I'm not doing anything super fancy today, to be very honest with y'all. This is going to be a very Mars transmission from me in terms of all this, right? Like I'm just as someone who's also ruled by Mars and a representative of the divine masculine in the best way that I possibly can be. I'm just gonna give it to y'all raw and honest. And I'm not trying to like dance around too much. I'm gonna be as straight up as possible. So appreciate y'all for pulling through. Appreciate the love. And let's just hop straight into it like a Mars person would do. So let's man. Yo, bro, I'm live. Can I hit you back in a little bit? No, you good, bro. I would say what's up to the people, but I literally about to hop in. Anyway, I'll hit you back later on. I bet. All right, peace out, bro. So everyone's trying to hit me up as I gotta start going in. That's usually how it go. Anyway, so let's start this off. Mars is very akin to all the slogans and all the things that we've ever seen for brands such as Nike, right? The concept of just do it. Do y'all remember that Shia LaBeouf meme that came out years ago where he's like, just do it. Don't let your dreams be dreams. The idea of Mars is that there's this impulse, right? As a matter of fact, I just want to like explain Mars as like this is really where your instincts get to kick in. Because as much as we are human beings, because we have our opposable thumbs, as much as we have advanced a civilization in terms of how we go about our own humanity, there's still a very raw and core part of us, a core tenet of all of us that has us act on our desires or not act on our desires. To be super transparent with y'all, yesterday when I was getting the astrology masterclass together, when I was putting together my notes, which I'll be getting into later, I really was thinking about Mars, the divine masculine, and the wounds that has come from the misuse of Mars, right? And I got into a certain space where I was reflecting on my own life and just how growing up as a man, uh the also the what we're supposed to be kind of expective of as well as men. Historically, traditionally, how other men have raised other men before we've gotten into this healing wave, which has been coming through from the Pluto and Sagittarius generation. You're looking at the leader of that right there, you know what I'm saying? But the idea of Mars is like you need to be able to step up and act. So the reason why Mars gets so associated with the warrior, so to speak, is that in ancient times there had to be somebody to go out there, get the animal that y'all had to eat for the day, skin it, do the whole nine, cook it. And typically, in terms of the traditional sense, the men would go get the food, bring it back, and then the divine feminine would then care to it, cook it the way that they need to, deliver it. That's like baseline instinctual back in the day type of raw when it comes to the Mars aspect of things. Now, Mars in the tarot was ruled by the emperor, right? And one thing I always say about the emperor is that the emperor is the king of all the kings. There's the king of wands, the king of cups. There's other kings, so to speak, right? But there's always somebody in general, no matter what it is that you do, there's always someone that you look up to. There's always someone that you got to kind of like, oh no, like I'm the guy. Oh wait, but that's like Timothy Von Norton. And the reason why I think the emperor, in a sense, kind of represents this like King of Kings mentality is because the emperor is at peace with his primal raw power, sexuality, and instincts in a way that doesn't make the Mars vibration feel extra. And the other card in the tarot that happens to be more of that Mars that we talk about in terms of conquest, battle, war, etc., is more of the Tower card, which is also represented by Mars as well. So the Emperor and the Tower card. One, the Tower card is more like, again, things just fell apart. The battle has happened. This is the aftermath of all the things that just had to happen to make sure that there was a victory, so to speak. But the Emperor isn't in the energy of trying to force his power. He's standing in his power. The Emperor card has mastered their Mars. I posted something about this on Threads and just it was halfway promotional for this live stream. But I was thinking to myself and I was like, in my age range, and people a little bit older than me, etc., we have this there was a surge, I don't even know when it was, but there was a whole idea where it was like, oh, if a guy was just trying to just boink and not like make a relationship out of it, or if a guy was a player, we would typically say, hey, that person was an F boy. Specifically, if that person would come through, do as they do, and not be tender or really care for who they were dealing with in that process. It was like, oh, that person's an F boy, right? And what I always thought about that in terms of the astrological part is that men specifically, I'm just getting into this, we get taught that Mars is our moon as men. Like this is how we get taught. This is how we get raised. This is how why I'm doing my best to kind of like you know X that out because when we get told as young, hey man, you gotta suck it up. You gotta embrace it. You gotta just like you just gotta tee up, get tough, dog. Which like in some cases you really do. Sometimes you really gotta pop up and show. You know what I'm saying? But I remember this one. There's a show called Euphoria, and they were introducing one of the characters, and the characters on the show was a football player, and so they were going through his origin story back in the day. And so when he was young, he wanted to go to the league to be in football. Right? Football, very Martian sport. It's literally men out there tackling one another, knocking each other down, run into the like there's the sports aspect and element is purely Martian in general, right? Even the World Series and all these things going on, like every sports game you've ever seen, this like a Mars energy. If you ever been inside of arena and walked through and you're like, oh shoot, like everyone's turning up. What's good with this, right? You've ever seen a marching band march together and you're like, okay, right? All of those things have that Martian vibration. Why? Because it's palpable energy. So let me get back to the example I was trying to make from the show. So if anyone hasn't seen Euphoria, it is a very Pluto and Sagittarius type of show. And if you are in a Pluto and Sagittarius generation, I highly recommend that you do watch it because it really does tell a lot of the hidden truths behind what's been happening in terms of a lot of the ways that like we got raised or things that popped up. Anyway, for Euphoria specifically, I forgot his name, but basically there's a scene and it sticks in my head always. And the kid's going through it. He's trying to break through. He's trying to be a man. Mind you, he's like 13 at this point. He's trying to be a man. He's trying to like push through, get his stuff done, make his dad proud because his dad was trying to train him in football as well. Very Mars to Mars thing, right? I want to make my dad proud. Very Martian type thing. That's a whole aspect of that, right? I have Pluto and Sag for anybody who doesn't know. So yeah, like the war militant. Yes. So that's very much like that football thing. So the kid started to cry or he got upset. He was like, I don't know if I'm gonna do this, dad. Like I feel weird. I feel what's up, right? This gets back to the whole a lot of men get taught their Mars is their moon, and that's the case. So that's why I want to explain this. Because his dad looks at him, and the way that the show gets set up, I'm thinking it's about to be a tender moment. You know what I'm saying? Like a Mufasa speaking to Simba type moment where he's like, "Don't worry, son. One day you will be king." No, you want to know what this dude says? He leans into his son. He's like, "Hey, man, you know those feelings that you're feeling right now? I know they're really real for you, and I need you to take all those feelings that you're having, hold it in. I need you to bottle it up. Bottle it up. Don't express it. Just think it in. Make it. And I'm in my head, I'm watching this and I'm like, no, no, let that out. He's like, gotta bottle it up. And then when you get out on the court, I'm sorry, not the court, when you get on the field and they let off the huddle, I need you to let it explode. And that is the worst advice I've ever seen a man give another man in general, right? And that's the reason why in a lot of these cases, the divine masculine hasn't been able to be divine in a lot of cases because we're trying to unlearn so much of the paradigm. And that's for those who are choosing to unlearn the paradigm as well. But I wanted to point out this Mars thing, all these aspects and elements to just kind of introduce the idea that Mars is about action. Mars is about pushing things forward. Mars is about you having to express the thing, start to action, move forward, right? Evolving just said euphoria is super intense. There's a reason why it's super intense. This is the world we grew up in. And that's the part that people don't get. Like, for especially for people who might be a little bit older, watching the show, it's going to trigger you. Watching the things that are in between is going to trigger you. Why? Because it's real to experience in a different world. Like we are constantly evolving as a people. And Mars as an energetic, I believe, is also evolving as well in a different aspect to just what is seen in the traditional sense. Now let me get into the other part. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Anyway. But so when it gets when it gets to Mars too, and this is to anybody, where Venus is what you like, right? Yo, light bright, that's a fact. And he ended up spazzing out. Like he literally spazzed out on the show. Yes, you're right. Anyway, getting back to the other part of this, right? When it does go to an element of the sexual nature of Mars, right? Back in the day, I talked about this in my Venus Masterclass a bit. So if you want to know the other side of this, check out my Venus Masterclass. Because Mars was with Venus, because Mars was the one that was going to please Venus, because Mars as a deity was like, I'm war smashing. That's what I do, right? And so when it comes to the Mars element, Venus is what you desire, what you like, what you enjoy out of, let's say, the action of itself, right? But Mars is how you utilize your sexual nature towards the other person. So if you've been in a situation to where in the act, you may have been off, let's say, right? And you're like, oh, I've been trying to emulate the thing that I saw on a movie once. Or you're like trying to fulfill maybe a certain quota and it doesn't come organically to you, it doesn't come naturally to you. That's because you may not be honoring your Mars, right? So if you even have these insecurities in terms of like how you go about the action of or how you present yourself in that regard, that is a Martian thing because you are utilizing the the mana, right? The key, the chi, the energy system. As a matter of fact, Mars is what, in my personal opinion, rules the Kundalini system. Have you ever heard about Kundalini? The rising snake, the burst through that ends up like making your chakras open up. and have you step into a newfound power where you're kind of honestly more connected to your primal state while still being present as like your human form. I know I'm getting a little meta, but the idea with this is that Mars is about how you go about the act, right? Mars is about how you want to push the act out to other people. If you're looking at someone and you're like, the things that I would do to them, that's your Mars sensing the desire of what you want to happen. Now, in terms of the act itself, there's a lot of different variables in just real life, but also in terms of energetics, right? You might be, depending on your Mars, you might come off to someone more aggressive than what they may like or the other person may like. So it's like, whoa, I was cool with that, but for some people, they might come off a little too passive. Like, oh, you should have fought for me. Have you ever said that before? You should have fought for me in my situation. Have you heard someone say that before? That's Venus requesting the Mars to step into the masculine, so to speak. Now, when men in particular step into the route of healing, this is when you can get into a newfound position of knowing how to not just please the other, but just like find your confidence in what it is that you do. Find your confidence in how you express the assertion, how you express the energy coming out of you. And one thing about Mars that is really hard to explain, and the reason why I think people miss it so many times is because Mars is in everything that we actively do. If you get up in the morning and you don't want to get out of bed, that's because your Mars isn't moving yet, right? For people who may need caffeine, I'm guilty of this too. People who may need caffeine and stuff like that, or it's hard for them to find their energy level. Typically, that's because of another issue with their Mars or like utilizing their Mars properly, right? Finding the energy, getting the rest, because when we get to this next phase of things, we're also going to be talking about willpower, mana, and the concept of manifestation has a lot to do with Mars as well. Because as much as we sit here and we're like, oh, you can manifest anything you want, which is true. You can manifest anything you want, right? But people have typically talked about Mars. I'm sorry, people have typically talked about manifestation from a very Venusian like way. But when you don't start to do actions towards the manifestation, if you don't utilize the, hey, I want this, and here's what I'm gonna do to start this off, your manifestation will not happen. I'm gonna repeat, your manifestation will not happen. If you are sitting there being like, I wanna manifest my dream body, but you can't get yourself to actively make the change of your diet. You can't get yourself to actively make the change of like going out and like trying to go to the gym and stuff like that. Your manifestation might still start formulating, but it's not going to be to the impacts or the effects that you want, right? I'm a spiritual miracle guy, but we work, we work around here. You know what I'm saying? You got to put in the actions. You have to be brave. And here's the other side to Mars as well. Mars is about courage, bravery to do. Most of the time, the world tries to trick you out your Mars because they're just trying to explain Mars from a combative sense. Now, can Mars be combative? Yeah, damn right. Because Mars on the other side is the warrior, it's the protector. If you look at the YouTube thumbnail that I have for this, it's literally just like ancestral warriors from every culture. This is coming through. Why? Because in every culture, in every aspect of all of humanity, there's always had to be those people willing to step up to fight the fight for peace, to be able to fight the fight so you can enjoy those Venusian things, to fight the fight so you can do all this, right? Every time I step up here as an astrologer, I have to think about the shoulders of every ancestor I ever had who fought their way through just so I can live a life where I sit in front of a camera, talk to people on the internet, and get to literally help people every day. But that wasn't always the case. Not for me, not for my culture, not for my grandfathers, not for my father. Like there, when you think about the way that this works in the ancestry in the background, there always had to be a warrior. There always had to be a right maker. There always had to be someone who was willing to do what they had to do to keep the peace in the world. Here's the problem that we've entered into. A lot of those ancient rites don't exist no more, especially when it comes to young men. None of the things, like there used to be a coming of age, right? And I'm getting a little ancient here, but there used to be a coming of age that would happen. And I can highlight my own coming of age because I kind of tracked it on purpose because I thought it was really important to me as a person. But it's not something that just happens, right? And had I not had the wisdom from speaking to older people at such a younger age, I wouldn't even think that like those graduations of moments would even be that important. And so Mars gets vilified more than it gets understood. But because Mars doesn't care to be understood, they're like, you want to make me that villain? Bet. Let's triple down on it, right? Oh, you think that's my action? You want to tell me how I identify? Let's triple down. That's Mars though. Like that's the Mars that you have. Let's talk about Mars in the sky right now. As I don't know when y'all watching this later, right? But Mars in Cancer has been going on for the last few months, right? I can't think of the dates right now. I'm working on 2025 stuff. My brain cannot. We're just, and I'm not even pulling nothing up. We're going Mars about this. We active. But the idea though, Mars has been in Cancer for the last bit. And in the last 2 months, what has been true? People have been moody, bro. Oh my God, everyone's been so moody. We've had Mars in Cancer, and we're at the last part of Pluto in Capricorn. We are at the end of all of this like capitalism, high money, whatever the case is, right? Just like men, yes, men are moody. You want to know why men are moody? Men are moody because the masculine is on a 24-hour hormone cycle. So like if you every hour a man's mood literally changes. As the sun passes in the sky, the divine masculine big ball that rules in the air, men literally will experience that. That's why if you know men, you could get into an argument 1 hour with some guy, and then the next hour they're just like, hey, you want to get some food? Then the next hour they could be crying in their lap. There's like a constant rumbling. But what is it though? It's always what's happening right now. There's a present moment to Mars and all Mars things. So I'm glad you actually brought that up because yes, there is a 24-hour hormone cycle to that. Oh, just like men being vilified. I mean, for sure. Like let's double this up too. And I appreciate this. And you just opened up the other side of that. I hadn't even thought about talking about for this, right? But yes, like men can vilify. Like if you're gonna be like, hey yo, you're a jerk. A man that doesn't know his divine masculine, again, a lot of people, specifically guys, the reason why even guys can't get with astrology like that is because there's nothing Martian for them to relate to, and there's nothing for them to actively do. Like, you got to think about this. Men's worth from yay high to this is what can you do? What can you do for X, Y, and Z? What is your worth? If we look into the diaspora of even the last bit, there's been the talk about what's a high value man. A high value man is a man that does all of these other things, right? Meanwhile, for at least most of the women and stuff that I know, they don't care about none of that. They just want to be cared for. They just want to be cared for and protected. Mars at its best is a protector. Mars at its best is the emperor, where they're not trying to take away anyone's shine. They're not trying to step on anyone else's thing. They're not even trying to compete with you. They're just there to stay in their vibration, stay in truth, and do the things that come along with it. So, for the women out there in general, Mars is also I hear this term a lot where it's like when ladies are like, oh, I'm in my masculine, or oh, I could just take care of it all by myself. Those things are also true, but that's you tapping into your Mars. And so when you're tapping into your Mars for too long as a divine feminine, you can start to grow resentment because, fortunately for the Mars vibration, Mars doesn't get pat on the back for having a good job unless the day is won, right? If there was a clash between things and you lose, have you ever seen a sports team after they lose? If you've ever seen a sports team after they lose, ain't nobody happy. Ain't nobody sitting there like, oh guys, I'm so glad that we lost. Oh, I'm so glad that this didn't happen. That's usually not how that goes, right? There's a lot of like energy that gets brought to the fact. There's a lot of I just stepped up and I did my best and it didn't work. And then in that disappointment, there's not a lot of like, oh, it's okay, buddy. We'll be good next time. It's like, you screwed up that pass. How did you ruin this pass? Oh, that's also Mars, right? Now, getting back to the ladies, when it does come to this Mars situation as well, this is how you go about that. But the problem that we've had as a society, and I think even for people who are gender neutral, they, them, etc., I think y'all get this more than anybody else, to be honest. But the reason why we've been so screwed up as a societal point is because we can't honor both our Mars and our Venus at the same time. Typically, we get talked out of doing that one thing or another. I'm gonna frame this to you. For the divine feminine, hey, guess what? You don't need no man. You could do this all by yourself. So do it all by yourself. Go ahead and pay the bills. Do this thing, etc., etc. Do it all yourself. And then again, when you're not getting the reception back or there's not like a back and forth, that gets more of an aggression. That's where we get the whole I hate men stance from. Now, granted, a lot of men suck. Let's talk again about the men portion. When you're too into your Mars as a man, you're a prick. You're a literal douche. If you're too in your Mars to be able to like see other things around you, then you're just a jerk. If you can't get the concept of like, oh, what I say affects other people, you're probably just a douche because you're so in your own instincts that you can't see the like the whole. You can't see the other side of that. And so I know I've been yapping for a hot second as I do. I haven't even got to my notes yet, but this is pretty much the background of Mars. How I think Mars plays a role, and most importantly, Mars is your mana. That's the amount of energy you have in a day. Mars is and mana is a video game term for magic. It's not even just video game. It's also like in some cultures, they're called energy in general, the life energy, the life force, Mars. So, appreciate y'all for sticking with me. I know I've been going in for a second. Y'all know I like yapping about stuff. But, oh, for anyone who is looking to know more about their Mars, I am actually running a Mars mini reading from now until the new moon in Scorpio. And if for anyone who wants to tap in for the new moon in Scorpio, that's going to be happening. The live stream I'm doing on that is happening on Tuesday, but the actual new moon is happening on the 1st of November. I just have a busy end of the month and I wanted to make sure to sit there and get that container for y'all. So I will be doing mini readings for those as well, doing the mini readings for Mars for the next week or so. So just wanted to let you know they're available right now. I think I pinned it on the side or it's in the description. Man, people are hitting stuff right now outside because it's Mars stuff. You know what I'm saying? So let's let's actually get into more of the notes that I had. And I appreciate y'all for rocking with me. So this is the where we get into the nitty gritty. This is stuff that I care to write down. So you know I gotta be real. So basically, Mars is the raw primal force of conflict and the transformative power of fire. In alchemy, it's the purification through struggle and conflict. It's the alchemist's fire, and it forges us through challenges, pushing us to confront the limitations we have to emerge stronger and more refined. Now, in astrology, I talked about all those things. What are the two signs that are ruled by Mars? Aries and Scorpio, respectively, right? We're in Scorpio season. A lot of people don't know that Scorpio isn't ruled by Pluto. Scorpio is ruled by Mars, right? So in terms of the way that this ends up working, it's the warrior that's within. And the concept of the warrior, especially back in like again the ancient times, it was like a holy thing to like fight for the things that were important to you, right? It was a holy nature to even standing up as a protector. Mars on the Aries side is very direct. I'm an Aries rising. You know what I'm saying? The reason why, like, I think a lot of y'all like me the way that I am because I'm very like, you see what you get. I am who I am. I pop up as myself. What y'all want? What more do you want? You want me to pretend to be something else? That's what you want me to do? For what? That's very Aries, right? It's just all due in purposes. Now, on the Scorpio side is the feminine side of Mars, which is what? A little more reserved. It's the secrets of like the secrets of desire. It's you a little more behind closed doors. It's the sultry. It's the deeper mechanisms of why we want to utilize the energies that we utilize. So, excuse me. We're getting a little bit deeper into how this works. The shadow self of Mars is when you have the struggle against your lower desires, right? So for some people, this can show up as like sex addiction. This can show up to people as like I have to go be reckless, right? You know, a couple people, and as the youth say, you know, a couple crash outs, you know, a couple YNs on. Let me stop. Y'all know a couple people who are ready to do the most, right? Um, is Mars Scorpio's ancient ruler? Yes, actually, I think Mars is the ruler of Scorpio still to this day. I don't think check out my astrology 101 class that I have is free on YouTube as well. I do explain the differential between it. I just want to keep this as streamlined as I can because I do have a lot more to get. So, yes, get a little further, right? Deepest desires, motivations, it's a driving force behind our magic, our mojo, our charisma, even. When people see someone who is confident or steadfast in their desires, we find those people desirable, right? When someone gets passionate about talking about something, or if you see someone passionately doing something, we can get inspired back, right? Part of the principle of fire at its best is that it's inspirational, even if it's not intending to be. That's like the best part about that. Now I'm gonna explain how every Mars works differently soon, but just take this as it is for right now. Okay, what else did I say? I said a lot of stuff. Okay, the other side to this, right, is that in this concept, with Mars being used properly in your chart, you can conquer the negative tendencies you may have or fall into through the discipline of understanding how your Mars signs work. And so I think I've talked a lot so far to explain at least the baseline of Mars. But let's slowly start to enter into how Mars works in astrology for each sign, each element, and how that relates to not only the whole nine, but also when it gets to the freak nasty. You feel me? So if yeah, I'm gonna just say, I'm like, if a man that you know cannot satisfy your Venusian needs, have him master his Mars and learn his Mars and start from his Mars, and you might have a better time, respectfully. So, getting into the next part of things, right? I'm gonna go through how this kind of works briefly in terms of that part because I know why y'all are here. I know why you clicked this video. I know. So let's get into that part. So let's start with the elements and then I'm gonna dig deeper afterward into it. So I'm gonna start off with Mars and fire because that makes the most sense. So if you have Mars in either Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, you're typically going to be the people who are the go getters. You're going to be the one that's like, oh, I like that person. I'm going to go say what's up, right? Or you're the person who's like, hey, um, you're really hot. I'm hot. Let's do this. Like there's this like very direct line of passion to instinct. Like, hey, you down for this? You know what I'm saying? This could even be like back. I don't know about clubs now, I haven't been to a club in a hot minute, but when I was in my younger youth, going to the club and stuff like that, there was like this like kind of understood language. I understood the language. I can't speak on everybody. To where it was like if you see someone over in the corner and they see you, it's kind of like a okay, and you kind of like walk over. You're like, "What's good?" They're like, "You're like, okay." Then you get up and you're like, you know what I'm saying? That that whole thing is like a Mars moment. The Venusian side is like, come through here. And I think for people that have Mars and fire, that's kind of what they go about. Male, female, gender neutral, anything. That's just how that happens, right? So if you have Mars and Aries, this is direct, assertive, confident, and most importantly, competitive, right? Mars and Aries people are like, yo, I'm finna be the best. Mars and Aries is, I don't know if y'all know basketball like that. Mars and Aries is Draymond Green as he just steps on people's chests to jump off because he just got upset. Like Mars and Aries is the crash out. You know what I'm saying? They need to be with partners that match their enthusiasm, though. That's really important. Like Mars and Aries, like, I'm here and I'm gonna show you my power. Like that's Mars and Aries to a T. You get what I'm saying? So when it gets to like the business and stuff like that, they need someone who's going to be active, just ready to get a little like raunchy with it. That's just kind of what Mars and Aries now Mars and Fire is looking for. I'm gonna go through each of these briefly, then we'll get into a deeper dive. So make sure y'all drop your Mars sign again over in the side. Oh, nigga. Anyway, told you I'm getting Mars for this. So sorry, YouTube. Anyway, getting past this. Mars and Leo, right? Mars and Leo is going to be people that are a little bit more dramatic about their approach, right? Mars and Leo has a dramatize to them. They're going to be stepping up in those circumstances where they pop up and they're like, hello, everyone. I'm great. Here are all the reasons why I'm great. You should be with me. Like, there's this regalness that can come through with Mars and Leo in that regard. And that regalness is what's going to be really leading people to want to engage or not engage. Mars and Leo at its best is like that person who kind of just goes about completely doing their own thing, following their own passions, and having people literally just like relate to it. Like people like, oh my God, I see the shine. I want something to do with that. So that's kind of the other side when it gets to Mars and Leo as well. They aim to impress the people that they love, and they want to also make people feel special with Mars and Leo. So on the vice versa end, making someone with Mars and Leo feel special, they're going to come through with their best of performances. Respectfully, that's just something that you should know. Moving forward, Mars and Sagittarius. Mars and Sagittarius is really pulling through, right? All right, one second. Mars in Sagittarius, adventurous, a little bit more free spirited. When they get to the idea of sheboinking, it's for them exploration of self a lot of the times, right? Mars and Sag is like, I'm just trying to enjoy myself. I learn more about myself in the action. I learn more about myself through other people that I deal with. Typically, people that have Mars and Sag, you might have been with a few more people than some other people, just based off the action that your philosophy is just like, I'm here to find out more about who I am. I'm here to find out more about how I come across people. I'm here to find out just how cool or nice or dope I might be, right? That's a big portion that comes through with Mars and Sagittarius. But big thing about Mars and Sag is that they have to feel a sense of freedom. They have to be with someone who's willing to experiment or try new things or push the envelope or everything else like that. Mars and Sag has a desire and they want to push out the things that they're learning or the things that they're like interested in, especially if it comes to like a partner. So Mars and Sag, again, they might be a little bit more on the promiscuous side until they find someone that can match their freak on a respectful tip. But that's pretty much the way that that kind of goes. It's about the exploration of passion, seeing where that goes and finding out the philosophy behind how to be a better partner in that process. Okay. So we're still talking sheboinking. I'm gonna get to Mars and Earth, and then we're gonna get deeper into each zodiac sign on how Mars works on just a full basis, right? But I know what y'all came here for. Let me deliver. All right. So, all that aside, Mars and Earth, right? So, Mars and Earth signs, they're not going to be as active and fast and in your face as someone that might have Mars in a fire sign. Mars and Earth is a little bit more cool. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you're celibate now? You said now. Mars and Sag, you said celibate now. What happened before that? You was having fun. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm pro ho. Like we out here, like live it life. As long as y'all happy, safe, and everyone's being respectful, everybody grown, living their life. Live your life, straight up. Getting into the next part though, right? With Mars and Earth specifically. Mars and Earth is more picky. Just to be straightforward, right? Mars and Earth is a little bit more picky. Why? Because Mars and Earth is about like sensuality, right? Where Mars and Aries might just be like, like Mars and Fire is like, I'm doing the thing. I'm going in, I'm going crazy. Mars and Earth is a little bit more smooth. Mars and Earth is like more sensual. It's more about the details. It's more about like knowing what works specifically versus trying to do everything, right? So what I have written down here is that it's tied to comfort, security, and the physical senses. Mars and Earth is patient, consistent, and often sensual in their intimate relationships. So, put this into perspective. Let's go through each Mars sign to explain what's going on. Also, I think I mentioned this before. Everybody sound off your Mars over in the comments so we can see who's here, see what we're talking about. The more I see your sign, the more I might even talk about it. You know what I'm saying? This is really for y'all. This is for y'all to understand. I know this. You know what I'm saying? But I really want to be able to give y'all this part. And I appreciate y'all accepting me at my Martian right now. I'm feeling it today as I'm explaining all this, right? But Mars and Taurus, right? Mars and Taurus is one of the most sensual of the Mars signs because everything with them is about like the physical connection, the physical touch, really tapping into like the textures, the pleasures, the this, that, and the third. All of those end up coming through. Now, Mars and Taurus is more on the like like the slow and seductive side. You get what I'm saying? Like it's like they're not just there to like do the act. They're there to like feel into the act, right? Like I said, all the earth signs are more sensual. See how I'm even slowing this down as I'm explaining this? That's how that ends up going in, right? So, anyway, but all this to say, right? There's a devotion that ends up coming through, and typically, Mars and Taurus people want to be with a singular partner. I've seen a lot of the times Mars and Taurus aren't always the we outside people unless they have other things in their chart, but they're typically like, hey, I want to do all this for this one specific person or for this one specific this, and I want to only put this energy into that, right? Mars and Taurus is like, if we could do the deed, grab some food, and go to bed, I had a great time. Like that's Mars and Taurus to a T. So for people who are more of the like, let's stay in, find you a Mars and Taurus. I'm sure you'll have a great time. So let's see who we got here real quick before we hop back in. We got a Mars and Cancer, Mars and Cancer, Mars and Cap, Mars and Aries. I see you, Mars and Sag, Cancer, Scorpio, Virgo. Mars and Sag hit the nail on the head with that description. I'm just getting started. I mean, I'm like halfway through, but you get my point. Mars and Virgo reporting for duty, facts. And Mars and Gemini. Okay. Now, the next part. Let's get into Mars and Virgo, since I just saw a Mars and Virgo pop up in here, right? So Mars and Virgo is a lot more attentive, right? Mars and Virgo, even in their flirtation style, in their sexuality, etc., they're a little bit more understated when they explain things, right? You'll talk to a Mars or Virgo, and they might be flirting with you, and you'll be like, Is that what you just said? That was kind of smooth there." Like Mars or Virgo is like the gentleman Mars sign, so to speak, right? Mars and Virgo is like, "Let me open the door for you." And you're like, "Why are you opening the door for you?" He's like, "Let me open the door for you." And then when the bill comes out, and you're like, "Okay, I'm grabbing my check." Mars and Virgo's like, "I already paid for it." What do you mean? Because Mars and Virgo is like paying attention to what's going on, right? They're refined, attentive, and they have a cautious approach as well. So Mars and Virgo typically doesn't want to mess with everybody. Mars and Virgo is also like on some like they have this sense of like who is doing like they have a sense of intention a little bit different because like Mars and Virgo don't like when people are being too messy, right? Um Now, granted, some people just be outside, right? But Mars and Virgo will be like, you're a little bit too much outside for me. Maybe not this. I'm a little more particular, a little more picky, right? Mars and Virgo tends to express their sexuality through subtle gestures and mutual care and respect. So, one thing when it comes to Mars and Virgo is that through their attention to detail, they're able to like be seductive, right? Because you might mention one time to them, oh, I love when people put my hair behind my ear. And a Mars or Virgo will remember that when it's time and be like, they're like, oh, how did you know? And all they did was listen, right? So that's what Mars and Virgo's like main skill in terms of that is that they really try to figure out the details of what you want and need to be able to then implement them effectively for your sake. I think they get a lot of pleasure out of being of service to that regard. So take that as you will as well. So yeah, that's Mars and Virgo in terms of the shaboinking. Getting forward into Mars and Capricorn, right? So Mars and Capricorn, first of all, Mars loves being a Capricorn, right? Mars and Capricorn is the like whenever you see like to be at its best, Mars and Capricorn are those people that you see like um basically like I feel like every romance movie book somewhat thing is dealing with at least one man in there that has Mars and Capricorn and like, wow, they rocked my world, so to speak, right? Because Mars and Capricorn is disciplined, patient, but also very serious about those things, right? They take intimacy seriously, like it's a job. Like they like in terms of their connections and stuff, like they might start off reserved, but if they choose you to like be the person that it is, their whole mindset is like, I need to climb this mountain and be the best. Like typically, like, I need to climb this mountain. I need to be the best. I need to like push this like energy through and to stand out and to be one of the top of your list of people in life. Like that's kind of like the Mars and Capricorn effect. But similar to Mars and Taurus, Mars and Capricorn is more of like I want something long term, right? So there's this meme that I always see, it's like I I can't say that. Um they're just like, I just want to toast a strudel, the same person forever and get rich. That is Mars and Capricorn to a T. So that's pretty that's pretty much how that goes. It's always so fun to like talk about certain things, knowing I'm like, oh, I shouldn't do that. I already cussed in this video, so I'm trying to chill. But we're in Mars form right now. You know what I'm saying? Also, can y'all guess my Mars over on the side? That's another thing I'm gonna see. I'll let y'all know what it is later. But I'm just curious as to like what y'all think as I go through. It could be afterward. I just see. Okay, let's go back again through Mars and the elements one more time. We're going to the air signs now, right? I think we had a few air sign people in here. So for people that have sorry Mars and air, right? This is their stimulation and their desire and passion and drive typically gets inspired by people who are able to intellectually keep up with them, teach them something new, say something that like leads them down a path of learning more things, talking about more things, having more communication about things. Mars in air is really more focused on like the I'll put this like the playful side of things, right? So Mars and air is like on the playful side of things, the more communicative side, and the more if you're interesting or bring them interesting something interesting to the table, they'll want to be around you. They're going to want to talk to you, and if you say the right things that resonate for Mars and air, they're typically like, "I'm yours. What's up? What else? What else do you have to tell me?" So let's go through each of the signs for Mars and Gemini in air just to explain this, right? So Mars in Gemini is curious, playful, and mentally driven, right? The main thing with Mars and Gemini is that they're looking for stimulation. They're looking for something to stimulate their mind. They're looking for something to stimulate. You know what I'm saying? But on top of that, first of all, just to be transparent, if you have Mars and air, you are a little bit for the streets, respectfully, not in a bad way, but you love social interaction. Like you love being able to like speak to multiple people at a time. When I see Mars and Gemini in most people's charts, this is the man or the lady who likes to go out year round. Actually, now I think about it, I think I know somebody. I never asked them their chart because I don't ask people their charts in real life. I think that's weird. But like when I talk to people, or I'm thinking of someone right now who I think he's a Mars and Gemini as I think about it, but like he's a older man, gentleman dude, and he just is always finding a lady to talk to. Not to be extra, just to literally talk to them, right? He's not trying to even be a player. He's not trying to do anything else. He's just there to talk. And it's funny because after hearing his stories and his conversations back, it's like if they talk to him well and are able to vibe there, then he's like, what's next, right? What's up, Q? You did miss Mars and Taurus, but I'm gonna go double back through all the signs and get deeper. We're just talking about how all the Mars signs get to busyness, right? Um, I did say toaster strudel the same person. That's crazy. Um, it is what it is. We in Mars, we in Mars timing right now. And a Scorpio season. It is what it is. I'm just going whatever. So uh yeah, so Mars and Gemini, they're really flirtatious. They like to try the new things, but they really thrive on friendship. And for every Mars and air sign person, y'all actually might be attracted to your friends or people that are just like friendly to you or a friend of a friend type deal. Because you're like, well, if this person likes this person, well, they must be cool. It's a very Mars and air sign thing, specifically Mars and Gemini, right? So that's just something to do that. Always about the playfulness. The lighter it could be, the better it is for them. They don't like when things get too real too fast. That's when I'm Mars and Gemini. It might be like, oh, it's got way too deep, you know. You're scaring the hoes. Anyway, but that's pretty much the idea of that in that process, right? So for the next part, I want to talk about Mars and Libra. So Mars and Libra, this is where Mars and Libra has an interesting case, right? Because technically Mars is at fall in Libra because in order for Mars and Libra to feel comfortable, they have to kind of like know the terms of engagement. They have to know what the other person wants as well, and then kind of balance out what they want. So Mars and Libra are charming people, but they might not be the first people to like jump to making the first move. Like they might be in the vicinity, but they're not going to necessarily try to like, they're not bold as much as like Mars and Aries might be, or Mars and Fire. What Mars and Libra is trying to do is basically like balance out what's going on through diplomacy, seeing what's mutual, right? So let's say like if you have Mars and Libra or someone that you know has Mars and Libra, they might be like, yo, I love going to see live music, right? And meanwhile, when they say live music, that Mars and Libra person might be talking about, I love concerts and big bangers and like we're out here and we're at Coachella and it's crazy. Meanwhile, their partner might be like, oh, I love live music too, but I get really nervous in big crowds. So then the Mars and Libra kind of like balancing act is when that goes to like, oh, well, if you like this music, let's try out going to a jazz club, right? And so that's kind of the balancing act of that. And when Mars and Libra knows the rules of engagement to the person that they find lovely, that's when they finally give themselves a permission slip to maybe get a little more raunchy or a little bit more like aggressive, so to speak, right? But one thing about Mars and Libra is that they do love aesthetics. Like they love aesthetics. Um, they might just be Mars and Libra might just be drawn to you because of the way that you like did your makeup that day, way that you got dressed that day. They're just like, yeah, there's something about this. That's Mars and Libra. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that gives a little bit more context into that. Um, but yeah, they want to just pretty much find out what it is that you enjoy and meet you halfway as best as they can. That's the whole idea behind that. So they're not going to push things forward typically until they learn what's going on with you first. So Yeah, but that's what also makes them charming because they're like, oh, what is happening with you? Where do I meet you? Okay. So moving forward, we have Mars in Aquarius, right? If you have Mars in Aquarius, you're nasty. I hate to break it to you. Y'all are unconventionally nasty. I don't mean this disrespectfully. I mean this in like endearment. But the reason why I say that is because Mars in Aquarius, y'all have when I think the word kink, I genuinely think Mars in Aquarius, I'm not gonna lie. Because there's an unconventional part to your drive that you're like you like even as I'm trying to explain it, there's like just something with Mars and Aquarius where they're like, yo, just see the way that they wore that tote bag. I think I want them. Like it's like I don't know how to explain y'all. I really don't. Only and it's not in any disrespect. It's just that like y'all are so free spirited to your approach on like sexuality. And on top of that, it's just like it's a creative process. It's a free spirit behind it. And you value authenticity beyond all things, right? So if you meet somebody who might have particular desires and they may be a little bit unconventional or off kilter to that, Mars and Aquarius is like, I'm there. Mars and Aquarius is like, let's try it. Let's just give it a go. Like y'all are able to be more off kilter is really what I'm trying to say than most people in terms of that. So you're gonna want to try other stuff. You're gonna like you're gonna read the Kama Sutra and be like, I want to try all of these. Like there's just something with Mars and Aquarius where y'all are like so playful with the idea of like what y'all want to experiment with, what y'all want to try, and who y'all want to try it with too. Right. I've actually seen in general Mars and Aquarius show up in a lot of people who are queer in the for the most part. And what I've noticed about it is that like the concept is you're really going for what it is that you're feeling. And so even in terms of who you're relating to or who you're attracted to, you're not following the conventional norm of what the masculine and the feminine are trying to say. So that's something I also see like I not to say that it's a determining fact, but it's something that I have seen in general to where it's just like y'all are going to be more experimental and open to what people desire, period. And that's something that I do want to say. That's the best part about Mars and Aquarius, in my personal opinion. But yeah, that's a little bit about Mars and Aquarius, right? So moving on forward, we're going to also talk about Mars in water, right? So Mars in water signs, y'all are the sensitive ones. Y'all are the more emotive ones. Y'all are the ones that are like, I would say with Mars in Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, for the most part, y'all have to have some type of emotional or spiritual connection or feel some type of vibe, an intuitive hit even about like what that person is like feeling, seeing, or doing. So how what I mean by this? For Mars in the water, you're going to be more on the ends of like how do we dive deeper? How do we get deeper into this emotion? How do we get deeper into the spiritual portion of things? That's what I really kind of sense in terms of like Mars and water in general. It's like you really are trying to find the underbelly, the underlayers. You are doing the action, trying to figure out why you're feeling the things you're feeling. What are you feeling? Right? Here's the actions to figure out how you feeling. And it usually goes from there. Let me break down each one of them because I feel like every Mars and water sign is a little different. But let's break down each one of them and how y'all go about the shaboink. And I'm being as vague as possible here right now for the actual mini readings I have. I'm not on YouTube for that, so I'll be way more straightforward. I'm a YouTube partner, so I'm still trying to like to keep on the terms and conditions. You know what I'm saying? I know things get a little sticky. Anyway, back to Mars and water, right? Mars and water. So let's get to Mars and Cancer. I apologize. Mars and Cancer. So Mars and Cancer is emotionally driven when it comes to their wants to shaboink, right? They have a focus though on feeling secure, comforted, and having a certain amount of emotional intimacy, right? So Mars and Cancer, let's say that someone was even a player with Mars and Cancer for a bit. They might have been a player or be a player, but they're like, I just want to be with one person. But like, I don't know. Now, the other side to Mars and Cancer is like they have issues at times with just kind of like I don't hold on, I'm trying to say this. Mars and Cancer can be passive aggressive. Let's just start there, right? Mars and Cancer can be passive aggressive because it's like since they're on the more emotional end of Mars, they're trying to like intuit what they want to push out into the world. And if someone else isn't understanding or getting the emotive end of what's going on, Mars and Cancer starts getting a little bit "Hmm," like y'all catch attitudes for real, right? And it's not in any disrespect. It's just like you're going through the emotional ups and downs, right? You're feel like literally Mars and Cancer is like you're act- actively surfing a tsunami every day. Like you're actively like surfing the emotive part of the world every day. That's why y'all honestly make really great artists because y'all get to like tap into that really emotional place and express it that way. Now, the other parts of Mars and Cancer is that y'all are more on the sensitive side. You value the emotional connection. So you're going to want someone more so, or even for you, you might want to be with someone where you can like caress them, like, oh, here's this. Here's a little bit of a massage. You know what I'm saying? Here's a little bit of that, right? Mars and Cap sounds like a temper tantrum. I think between Mars and Cap and Mars and Cancer, is the possibility for a little bit of temper tantrum. Yes, there is a temper tantrum, but like that's how Mars and Cancer kind of gets what they want. And I think there's a lot of people that are attracted to that as well. The concept of brat in the space is like very like Mars and Cancer. Is like you didn't know. Get out of my face. Like there's like this. But then again, there's other people who like really desire that. They're like, oh, I like the moods. I like how one time you're like, oh, I'm really happy. Another time you're like, oh, I'm in my bag right now. But Mars and Cancer is able to transmute that when it does come to intimacy with the right person. So it really has to depend on how secure that person who is Mars and Cancer feels with the other person. Because if it's like a one night stand type thing, Mars and Cancer might not even want to engage at all. You know what I'm saying? Because they want to like know who they're dealing with. They want to know the emotive side. They want to know what that person's been through before that. And typically, when you do tell them the truth on something or you get vulnerable with Mars and Cancer, they're like, I'm gonna take care of you type shit. So that's kind of the idea when it does come to Mars and Cancer, right? So now Mars and Scorpio, y'all are also canonically horny. So Mars and Scorpio, Mars and Scorpio, y'all are like compelled. Y'all are compelled by desire. Mars and Scorpio is that person where you look up in the coffee shop and they're just they're just like so, and then you'll talk to them and you're like, hey, what's up? What's going on? They're just like, I are you doing anything later? Like there's this like intensity that comes with Mars and Scorpio, and they typically don't play games about what they want. These are the people who are mad bold. These are usually the people in your DMs who have like stayed in the DMs, just like, nah, like what really up? Nah, like what you fire mode. But like constantly, like consistently. Because Mars and Scorpio is like, I'm gonna keep going for it. I'm gonna keep saying what's up. I'm gonna keep doing this. Now, on the other note to Mars and Scorpio, right? They are really tied to the tantra behind the act of the coitus. Because for them, the reason why they're also so drawn to this transformative part of de la petite mort, so to speak, is because that's where they gain actual transformation, understanding of their body themselves, because Mars is still a ruler of Scorpio. So when it gets to Mars and Scorpio, it's like you're gonna like the more taboo things. You're gonna be like, hey, what is it that you truly enjoy? Let me try to do that. Now, the thing about Mars and Scorpio is that when y'all are single, y'all are bust down Tatiana, y'all be outside. But once you are typically with like one person, or when you're like really like with a singular thing, that's when you really start to like dig in deeper, learn even more about yourself, and activate these more profound parts of yourself process. So that's Mars in Scorpio in general in terms of that. Now, talk about Mars and Pisces. Now, Mars and Pisces, we're going to have to talk. Because Mars and Pisces, y'all are driven by fantasy, right? Mars and Pisces, when it comes to things like that, they're driven by fantasy. They want to, for lack of better purposes, like be the fairy that comes through and sprinkles the fairy dust and satisfies your wishes and makes you feel all loved and cuddly and cozy. But here's the thing with Mars and Pisces. Mars and Pisces want to do that with anybody they rock with. And so what happens with Mars and Pisces people a lot of the times is that even if they have like a one night stand or some type of hookup or something like that, the other person is there being like, "You just gave me a magical night. I know that you want me forever." And Mars and Pisces is like, "I would do that for any." I love y'all, but like Mars and Pisces is like, I'm here to just satisfy and approach things with empathy and intuition. The problem is Mars and Pisces are romantics in all these circumstances. And so y'all typically find yourself in situations where it's like, why do all these people want to date me or be with me? It was just a whatever. But meanwhile, you gave them the night of their lives and they're like, need more. And you're like, I'm gone. Bye. Now, granted, Mars and Pisces are looking for a transcendent experience with that. And when they do settle down with somebody, it's going to be someone who can really continuously like feed their imagination or feed their want to like give you exactly what you want. So if you wanted somebody to pop up and play dress up and do a certain thing and everything else like that, Mars and Pisces is probably one of your best bets because that's just what they enjoy doing. You know what I'm saying? Your sister is Mars. This is from Light Bright. Your sister is Mars and Venus and Pisces, and she can't understand why she's had so many stalkers. I unfortunately, that's part of the other side to things like that. Like, and I that sucks straight up. That really sucks. But it's like that's the other side to some of these things that I'm saying, where it's like there's like, oh, here's everything you wanted. Okay, bye. And it's like, I thought that was just for me. I need to cling. And again, that's the negative side of Mars. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the more messed up toxic side of Mars. I need to be there. Like that's where things can get more on the darker end of that part. And that's where we need other Martians there to protect. You know what I'm saying? That's what I was thinking. But at least this is a good rundown about like the Mars and astrology, how that kind of goes specifically in terms of like intimacy, how they approach intimacy, and how you should blink. So, what's your Mars sign? Have you related to your Mars sign so far with that? Make sure you drop it over on the side. Um, I don't think no one guessed my Mars sign correctly yet, so I will not tell y'all. But feel free to drop that over on the side. How y'all feeling about this so far? Let's keep it going. Right now, I'm trying to get through this next side of things, which is going to be more about the key portions of this, more the keywords, more some the esoteric part to your Mars. And this is really how this is my best way going through these Mars signs one more time to really explain to you how Mars works on a energetic and mana and life force and willpower kind of level, right? This is where you start to dig into the power of your Mars and not just what we think about with Mars, which is like doing the deed. Because again, I know why y'all here, but let's get into why Mars is more important than we typically talk about. So we're going to go through all the Mars signs again. I'm not a Mars and Sag. Good guess. I'm gonna keep it going, explain it through, keep it going. So, did I? Hold on. Oh, I'm going to do the elements again. Okay, so here's how this is better how I explain it, right? I do not have Mars and air, but that's also a good guess. So, get into the next part, right? We're gonna get through the elements. I'm going to do the elements one more time. So, remember your Mars from before. I'm gonna go through the elemental portion and how that ends up rocking through. So, let's dig in. So the core drive that happens with Mars and fire, talking about Mars and fire first, Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, there's a need to assert your individuality that is palpable, right? In terms of nurturing yourself, you need to be encouraged in an enthusiastic way. For people that have anything Mars and fire, you can't have someone be like, "Oh, sure, let's do it." They have to be like, "Yes," and you're like, "Yeah," and then they're like, "Yeah." Like that's when Mars and Sag is like, "Oh, we got someone got it right. Someone got it right. CCK. I don't know what you win, but you got it right." Great work. Great work. Um. Anyway, so in terms of Mars and fire, utilizing and channeling your passion into bravery and risk taking is what ends up kind of giving y'all a lot of sense. So with Mars and fire, one of the key goals, one of the key lessons is that you have to do the thing while you feel it. Mars and fire people have to honor their instincts, straight up. You have to honor your instincts. You have to honor like what's going on. You're pioneering, you're direct, you're courageous, and you have to like be the spark a lot of the times. You know what I'm saying? That's really what I'm trying to say with Mars and fire. And so the way for you to utilize your Mars as a fire Mars, you got to be active. You got to be as active as you can be. You have to stay fit as much as you can. You have to just keep things moving. You have to try new things. You have to just do what your ego and will is popping up for that day, and you will gain so much more benefit. Make sure that you do what you can to rest to keep the energy up in that process, but that's how that goes as well, right? Now, we have Mars and Earth. So Mars and Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, right? This is going to be more about accomplishment, practicality, and your personal security or gaining security in terms of things, right? So when in terms of nurturing with that, you want to provide structure. And if you get appreciated as a Mars and Earth for your hard work and dedication towards things, you will show up and show out even stronger, right? Because Mars and Taurus is like, hey, I don't mind doing what I do, but a thank you would be nice every once. And in terms of that, the more that you kind of get thanked for those things, the more you're going to be able to produce, the more you're going to be able to show up for things, the more you're going to be able to stand the test of time. Be more patient with that, right? Now, the one thing about people that have Mars in Earth is that y'all are constantly going to be in a refining process. So things with Mars and Earth aren't always different, but you're going to want to master the stuff that you're dealing with, right? As someone who does have Mars and Earth, that's part of why you see me go live all the time. I am literally practicing my craft in front of the people, in front of the community, and this is like something that I've been working on building on over time, right? There's a consistency, there's a need to want to show up. Um, and being willing to also be of service. So at best, when the Mars and Earth feels like they're at service, the more that they're able to produce and help, the more that they're able to actually tap into those in betweens, change these aspects to people's worlds. So I hope that that kind of gives y'all some more. I say Mars and Earth are the builders of the right. So when you're focused on building something that's going to last the test of time, that's when you're using your energy best. And take your time with it. Do things piece by piece. You don't have to like force or rush it. As a matter of fact, with Mars and Earth, the slower that you kind of go about a lot of processes, depends on the rest of your chart, but the slower you go about the processes of what you really care about, the better off that you. Hope that gives you some cool show. Light bright, you close. It's a different Earth sign though. I'm not. I hate telling my chart just because it's so much more fun for me to like poke at y'all about it. Like, oh, what is my chart? Ooh, I'm so mysterious. Not really. Uh, but yeah. So, damn, cat just snitched on me. That's crazy. And I'm like, you good? All right. So let's talk about Mars and air. Actually, one second. QB said you don't understand Mars and Taurus. I'm still in Mars and Earth right now. Slow and steady wins the race. It seems like an oxymoron. So let me explain something about Mars and Earth one more time. Slows and steady wins the race is an oxymoron. I think it's a thing that I like to say because it's something that we all know and can like, oh, that makes sense. But genuinely speaking, it's not about slow and steady. It's about literally just consistency and not letting yourself burn out. Like that's the main key to all of that is like take your time with it. You know what I'm saying? Mother Nature don't trip. Mother Nature takes her time. You know what I'm saying? Like things take time to grow. So what happens with Mars and Taurus is that y'all work really hard, and then you kind of like if you sit there and like wait for it to grow, you're gonna just be like watching paint dry. If you just do what you have to do, get all the work done, and then go about the pleasure in your day, that's when things just like happen on their own, and you start being more frugal and more fertile, so to speak, in your manifestations and more. So I hope that gives you a little more. So yeah, so let's keep it going. So now we're getting now we're getting into Mars and air, right? So if you have Mars again in Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius, if you have any of those in that process, Mars and air is going to be. One second, I lost where I was at in my notes. Please hold. I do know these things off the top of my head, but I would prefer to like attempt to be a little more studious about it. To put systems in place, yes. Every Mars and Earth, you need to put a system in place or your life's going to suck. I'm not going to lie. You need a system. Mars and air, on the other hand, you can't have a system. Mars and air can have no system. Mars and Earth, you need systems, straight up. Mars and air is like, I showed up today. Now, why is this important? Because Mars and air is, she's like the wind through my tree. She rides the night next to me like you won't believe, no. Anyway, the idea though is Mars and air though. Shout out to being able to break into random music breaks in between my stuff. What other astrologer you know can do that? You tell me. Okay. So getting into Mars and air though. Again, now I'm dealing with Mars and air and I'm doing some air sign ish right now. See what y'all do? So this is about intellect, communication, and innovation. Mars in air is about basically innovating every day. Like the more that you can innovate every day, the more that you could tap into what's going on. As I wrote down, the ever-changing force that carries ideas and information. So yes, I know the joke when I started this was like, she's like the wind, but literally that song is Mars and air. I feel the breath on my face. Her body close to me. Anyway, but like that's all Mars and air. That's why I was singing it. That's what came through. Now here's the problem sometimes with Mars and air is that there's such an inconsistency, right? Um, someone said, is that why I like winging it? Yes. A Mars and air sign is a person who read a couple notes before the project. Then they got up and they were like, well, there's all the other stuff I know. Here you go. And then they got it right. Why though? They got it right because like they were able to be in that moment. They were able to utilize their intelligence. But Mars and Aries likes solving problems to things, especially when it comes to like social situations, right? To be so honest with you, Mars and Air loves to deliberate. They love to point out um Mars and Air, I'm sorry, Mars and Air can be inconsistent, but they're really good at pointing out other inconsistencies. They're like, that's not how that was before. Hey, that thing changed over there. Mars and Gemini will poke at you and be like, so what do you think? So what do you think? Mars and Libra will be like, I know exactly how to level out what you think. Mars and Aquarius is like, I'm going to say something so out of pocket, you're going to have to figure out what you really think about this. They really just love to be able to like get into the intellectual world of things. That's what drives them forward in terms of their action and going about that. Now, Mars and Air, y'all can be rebels without a cause. Y'all can definitely be rebels without a cause. So be a little careful of that because sometimes your rebel without a cause portion can lead people to not trust in your ability to stay in one spot. So don't rebel for no reason, rebel for a reason. And when you do rebel for a reason, do what you got to do. But I just want to point that out. Let me read some of the comments as I keep going. What about cuspers? So I don't know if you are newer here and you know, but I do keep it straight. Cusp don't exist to me in sign. but I can definitely understand people's feelings about house cusp. So if you're at, let's say, for example, someone said something about 29 degree earlier. Let's say you're at 29 degrees of Aquarius. You're a 29 degree Aquarius. You're not a, I'm almost a Mars and Pisces. You get what I'm saying? Like you are actually that Mars sign. But depending on where it's at, that's when we get into the details and you can see how that works specifically for you. Even if it's at 0 degrees, it's not like you're at 29 from the one before. You're at 0 for a reason. And Mars moves slow enough through the zodiac to where this is important, right? Um, okay, vocals, you know. Uh, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's why you like winging it, sing it, that's the whole nine. Okay. So we went through that's Mars and air for the most part. And the last thing I want to leave y'all off with Mars and air is that like y'all are the sudden change that needs to happen sometimes, right? The information that you have can bring up something to really change the course of how things go. So don't be afraid to also speak your truth or to bring up that conversation that might be a little hard because that's part of your thing. You are kind of supposed to be the instigators, to be honest, of information and thoughts and be like, is that really what you think? So don't start every debate for no reason, but also, you know what y'all like to do. Okay. Now on to Mars in water, right? So when we get to Mars and water, we're in Mars and water right now. We're dealing with Mars and Cancer. We're going through that. And so all the way that you've been doing about things. And if you've said anything in the last 2 months that has to resemble, yeah, I'll do this when I feel like it. Or I'm not really feeling like that right now. It's because we're in Mars and Cancer. Now, speaking of that, Mars and water is about true inspired action, right? Mars and water will like having a routine ish. Like for Mars and water, it's more so, water fits into whatever container it goes into. You get what I'm saying? So even with the way that y'all go about your actions, you're going to want to like be able to be vulnerable in a certain case because through vulnerability is actually your strength. And that's something I've been learning from water signs and water energy in general. And as I explore my own concept with the water, like vulnerability is strength, right? So even with the way that you go about things in honoring your truth of the vulnerability and honoring what has hurt you, what has gone on in your life, what has gone on in your world, that can lead to better emotional fulfillment for not just yourself, but for the people that you're talking to. So Mars and water, y'all are really meant to be the ones to like go out there and dig a little bit deeper, right? Dig a little bit more into what's going on with your emotional world, right? Mars and Cancer will be out at a party with somebody and be like, "Tell me about your trauma." I'm sorry, Mars and Water in general. Like they'll be like, "Tell me about like what's really going on," because Mars and Water is investigative. They're investigative because once they know what's going on, they can kind of choose what container they want to be in or to flow in. Are they flowing with you? Are they not flowing with you? They freeze up because you said something cringy, right? Um, there was this show I've just finished watching. For anyone familiar with the Power Universe, I've watched every episode. But there's this one part at the end of the last season, and this dude who's Method Man, who's like that's big homie. Um, but like he said something mad cringy, and he's usually mad smooth. And I remember him saying that he's like, "Well, what about my tongue game?" And it was like, "Ew." So sidebar, the reason why I even brought this up is because Mars and Water, y'all are most likely to get the ick. Out of every Mars sign, the ick that happens was like, ugh, I can't even deal with that. It could be like anything really. They could say something weird, they could say something off, but if it like emotionally messes up with your intuitive pure vibe of that, you're like, ill. There's like that type of vibe that could definitely come through with Mars and Cancer. But y'all are really able to like, what's it called? Y'all are really able to find the hidden depths of the psyche through you just doing the things that you do. So there's a hidden layer in a hidden world that Mars and water people are operating in all the time. And you have no idea. Mars and water, y'all know. Y'all 100% know. Y'all be like, yeah, I'm just picking up on some information and some vibes. And then at the end of the day, you're like, I know everything that happened here. So, um, So D just said over here, Mars and Scorpio, that part checks out for me. You're a trauma therapist, right? And so it's funny because even with someone who's like a trauma therapist, like in order to do any type of therapeutic work, in order to do any type of healing work, and in order to do any even spiritual work properly, in my personal opinion, you have to know what's going on with the collective pulse. And Mars and water are constantly picking up on the pulse of everything around them. And so their intuition kind of guides them into like the right answer. So even for someone who is a therapist, you might be like, oh, here's this event that happened. Here's how this worked for them. Let me gear this together and boom. And then they have that container and you just gave them the tools to have them utilize their Mars to fix the problem. Have them utilize what? Their actions, because in most times it's really important to have action steps in terms of healing and all those other things, right? So speaking of action step, make sure that you leave a like down on this. Shout out Liv. Make sure you drop a like for your boy. You feel me? I do my best to come through on these master classes, give y'all the real for the frizzle. But I am offering my mini readings as well. So I am having my Mars mini reading that's going to be based off this master class. I'm keeping that open for like a week. And I'm going to be sending those through. The new moon class I'm going to be doing is on Tuesday. But I'm going to be the reason why I want to do this first is because I'm going to be referencing a lot of Mars stuff during that new moon in Scorpio. Because I'm really going to be breaking down how the Mars principle is getting utilized with the new moon. And because it's happening on so many, like it's happening on Halloween, it's happening on Samhain, it's happening on the Day of the Dead. There's a lot of manifestation potentiality with this new moon. And as we're ending out Pluto and Capricorn, I really want to break down what that actually means to y'all. And oh, excuse me, in a way that like makes sense and y'all can tap into and utilize for this really auspicious new moon that's coming through in the sign of desire and the subconscious magic and all stuff. So, you know, and for anybody who's watching this later on in the future, just come book a reading, bro. I don't know where my link's gonna be, but come find me. What you doing? Like, I'm a, I'm a I am still offering readings as well. I love doing readings. They're my favorite thing to do. Straight up. So it's a beautiful thing. I do work a day job, so I have unfortunately don't only just do readings every day. We'll get there. We'll get there. I still work in the astrology field though. For those of y'all who don't know, I am an editor at astrology.com, horoscope.com, and I do some social media work for them. In that whole conglomerate. So that's my day thing that I do. So I still work in the astrology world. But this is Maverick time. This is my time, my life for the people. This is our time to pull up. Aside from that, I hope everybody gets a better understanding of Mars from this a little bit in terms of like how you go about action, how you go about your desires, how you tap into those things. This was helpful. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Goodness. Yeah, no, I appreciate this, and I think, like I said, Mars is very misunderstood based off of the pain that the masculine energy of the world has been going through. But I think as we enter into Pluto and Aquarius, and I do my best to in my own world, and it hurts, it sucks. Like for any male that's trying to tap into your divine masculine, it's gonna suck. It hurts. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. Because then you have to sit there and like think about like all the random just like Mars and stuff in your world, and you're like, oh, it was like that. Like it's not fun. You know what I'm saying? But it's one of those things that when you step into that, you can find the alchemy of the wisdom of the warrior. And as you find the wisdom of the warrior, you know better how to stand up for people and to move that through. Best astro memes ever. Hey man, you know, um, some people originate things. Some people, some people find things later. They do their own thing. But sometimes the original person who to push that forward, that's the emperor. You feel me? Anyway, but for real, appreciate y'all for being here. Thank y'all for dealing with me at a more Martian time because I was like, I'm not even pulling up no crazy notes. I'm looking off my phone. Usually I do a little sign. I was like, I don't feel like it. I literally was like, I don't feel like it. I'm just gonna tell you what's up. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Appreciate you for pulling through. However way that you came in, whether you found me on YouTube, and for y'all who found me on YouTube, I'm so happy. Shout out to that. The work's pulling through. Those who have found me on IG, thank y'all for coming through and looking past the memes and finding like the real information. I know it's hard for me to pop up and be like, hello, short form people. Here's how to use your Mars. Ha! It doesn't work. But appreciate y'all for respecting the game and the hustle that comes on behind that. For those of y'all who found me from any other place or met me in person or anything else like that, just appreciate y'all for being here. Thank y'all for letting me be real as I am, just show up. I know it's been a minute since they've seen a style with no gimmick, but like I think for y'all, I like to inspire people's authenticity as people in my world have inspired mine. So, you know, we're all figuring out how to become our own mavericks in a way. Uh where did you start? Okay, I'll answer a few questions before I do. So Let Go Studio asks, where did you start when deepening your understanding in astrology? That's a good question. Um, I got into astrology a lot earlier than most people because I was really into religion, culture, philosophy. Like I took Latin in school, Japanese. Like I was just like, I wanted to know. I'm a Sag, you know what I'm saying? So for me, I was like, I loved learning. I wasn't in a position when I was younger to have my own autonomy. So I spent a lot of my more alone time studying things about the world or like why we kind of do the things that we do. And I remember there was this one specific book I had that I read through and it had like all classic stuff, whether it was like some Socrates things, so it was the Son of War, Art Two, I'm sorry, Art of War by Sun Tzu, The Prince by Machiavelli. Like there was a lot of stuff like that that I was just like, I would read because I'm like, where what thinkers have thought these things in life? You know what I'm saying? Um, and what I noticed that all across that, everything spiritual always had to relate back to the stars. And so from my understanding of religion to the stars, I ended up just kind of like falling into astrology, being like, this is BS. Mars, right? The Mars aspect of me was like, this isn't real. There's no way. But I'm a Mars and Virgo. So I was like, I need to figure out the science. Let me figure out the details. Let me follow it. So then after that, I followed the moon every day 2 years straight from like I'll say like 12 to 14. And it was always on point. And I was like, oh. And for me, I can't I can't believe in something for no reason. But after I like did my due diligence, I was like, and all these years later, that's what I help y'all do. 10 years later, more than that. So it's a beautiful time. Um, okay, I understand it. I now understand why I was so spicy. It's been a little all over the years since spicy time. I haven't found the right one to do it with, right? So here's this other part about all this Mars stuff, right? You don't have to engage into stuff that you're not feeling. I know a lot of people are on celibacy journeys. I know a lot of people are looking to find a one. I know a lot of people are just looking to find someone to compatible with. And to be honest with y'all, the streets is crazy outside, and the reason why everyone's having a harder time in terms of relationship and like knowing where they sit in the world, it's by design. Just to let y'all know, like this isn't art. This isn't your fault. Like anything that pops up from that, honestly, it's not your fault. We pick up our phones every day. See, anyway, we pick up our phones every day to see beautiful people, as I just did moments ago. But the idea, though, right? We pick up our phones every day. We see all these beautiful people with like. I live in LA too, so I see people with Facetune on. I see people that like they'll change stuff up, and so we have to like kind of compare. Oh, that's what that is. So I need to be like this. Like we get our self esteem screwed up on purpose all the time. And why I do these master classes anyway isn't even for right now. It's just for Pluto and Aquarius, because that's when people are going to find this for real. That's for Pluto and Aquarius and tapping into that. But for anybody who does want, I am about to leave in just a minute. Anybody who does want me to deep dive with y'all, break down your Mars sign and how it works specifically in your chart, make sure that you sign up for the Mars mini reading. I'll be sending those out throughout the week, not in the next couple of days because I have a busier schedule. But the sooner in the queue that you get it, the faster that you get it from me. And yeah. Ooh. Slowly getting into the lull of I just yapped for 2 hours pretty much. But thank you for showing up. I'm just glad to be able to kind of like put this into perspective. And of course, everyone's Mars is different. And I didn't even talk about Mars in the houses. So please watch my astrology 101. Put all those things together on top of it. Like everything is going to lead back to astrology 101 and back to the rest of that. Got that perspective. And I want to go through honestly each planet with y'all free, just so y'all can not have some silly, some silly BS. Because some people suck, but some people are great. And I usually try to be like, oh my God, they're great. But some people really suck. Anyway, before I get too Martian about this, I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Thank y'all for pulling through and rocking with me. Thank you for rocking with me. All right, cool. I'm gonna go now. Y'all have a great one.